Back to our top story now. Questions about trust in your government. A brand new report on the NSA's spying efforts finds that the agency has broken privacy rules thousands of times every year, going back to 2008. Washington Post says many involve improper surveillance of Americans or foreigners on U.S. soil. Critics say something must be done now.
The fact is that's just a reflection of a sloppy attitude that I think flows from a culture that starts in the president's office. Look, this whole process that this administration has let get to this point really does have to be reviewed. I recognize a need for a lawful and efficient NSA operation. I think it's critical to the national security. But I do understand that there are bounds under which they are required not to cross, limits that they are required not to cross, and they can't cross those under the law, and they shouldn't cross them.
Made a number of interesting points there. Tucker Carlson is going to try and match that. Editor of the Daily Caller and a co-host of Fox and Friends Weekend. Good morning to you.
Well, good morning,
Your
Bill.
day is not done just yet. What Sununu said was lawful and efficient NSA operation.
Right.
What do you think of this?
Well, I don't think anybody is calling for the elimination of the NSA. I mean, it's, of course, useful to have an agency that keeps track of communications among foreigners potentially dangerous to the United States. The question is, should the NSA be spying on Americans? They're not allowed to. This administration said they weren't. A few mistakes were made. The Deputy Attorney General reassured us in June. Now it turns out that this report leaked, by the way, this was not delivered to us by the administration, shows over 2,700 times in a single year last year did they break the rules and spy on Americans. Now, presumably most of these were inadvertent, but it doesn't matter. They cloaked this from the public and, by the way, also from Congress. They're supposed to turn this stuff over to Congress. They didn't. This got to us by the Washington Post, which was leaked these documents.
Well, what I don't think is clear just yet from the article is what they did with the information.
Well, apparently they didn't.
Or even what they were looking for in gathering this information.
Well,
what was the incentive here?
Most federal agencies have some sort of internal, watchdog apparatus. An ombudsman, the equivalent would be in journalism, to see if they're doing their jobs correctly. But the idea that the NSA kept this information from Congress, whose role it is to provide oversight of what the NSA does and does wrong, is pretty shocking. By the way, there have been a lot of Republicans, maybe most Republicans on the Hill have been supportive fundamentally of Obama's surveillance programs. I don't think this helps at all.
You know, your point about keeping America safe is well-founded, and so too is the point that Sununu was making.
Right.
I think the mistrust of what they're doing with the information is where people go, man, this is a cloudy area, and we're not quite sure what happens next. Add to that this FISA court, right, this group of 11 judges in Washington that have to grant the subpoenas to go ahead and get the information in the first place. The judge said, we don't know when the government breaks the law, and we have no way of finding out.
That's exactly right.
So after they give or after they grant permission, what happens then?
Look,
and that would suggest there is no oversight.
A certain level of secrecy is imperative, of course, because if that information leaks to potential terrorists, it helps them. On the other hand, too much secrecy allows government to misbehave without any oversight. And that's what's happening. And people who receive subpoenas from the FISA court, for example, to turn over documents, or your cell phone records, or your Google searches, are not allowed to reveal in public that they received those subpoenas. NSA, if it catalogs its mistakes but doesn't tell anybody, is there any oversight? No, there's not.
Yeah, and I think for many folks on the right who've been watching this IRS story play out, they're like, hey, wait a minute, what do you do with my information? If it's 2013, what are you going to do with my information in 2023 or 2033?
It's a fair question.
It's never to be destroyed.
A lot of conservatives give the benefit of the doubt, however, to the administration, understandably, because they recognize we face a real threat from international terrorism, Islamic extremism, and they want to combat it, as we have been doing successfully for all these years. But I think this undermines the support among conservatives.
Listen, I think the irony is that Ed Snowden gave the information to the Washington Post. Quickly, I want to get this on the screen here from the Post today, quoting now. In one of the documents, agency personnel were instructed to remove details and substitute more generic language in reports to the Justice Department and the Office of the Director of National Intelligence. That, my friend, smells like something's being covered up.
Well, it's scary that you could have a massive, well-funded federal agency spying on Americans and then hiding that fact. I mean, this is the kind of thing liberals used to be upset about. They're not now because they, do whatever Obama tells them. But 30 years ago, they would have been jumping up and down over this.
Story's out today, and we'll see where it goes. Are you in this weekend?
Yes, I am.
Right on, man.
Ha!
We will be there bright and early.